Hey everyone, welcome back to Dating Decoded. I'm Jake.
And I'm Mia. And wow, Jake, do we have some juicy data to dive into today or what?
Oh my God, yes. So we've been digging into what Gen Z is actually Googling about dating, and it's fascinating. Like genuinely fascinating in a way that makes me feel old, but also kind of protective. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. Like, we're looking at 2025 Google search data, and these are the actual questions that are keeping Gen Z up at night. And honestly, some of them are heartbreaking, some are hilarious, and some are just very, very Gen Z.
Right. So we pulled data from multiple sources, Ahrefs, Forbes, Tinder's own studies, and we found the top 5 questions that Gen Z, that's people born between 1997 and 2012, are asking about dating. And the search volumes are substantial. We're talking hundreds of thousands of searches per question.
And before anyone comes for us in the comments, yes, we know not all of Gen Z is the same, and yes, we know search data has limitations. But patterns are patterns, you know? And these patterns, they tell a story about a generation that's navigating love in a way that's completely different from how we did it.
Completely different. So let's jump right into question number 1, which honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, honey, no. Ready for this? The number 1 most searched dating question by Gen Z in 2025. How do I know if someone likes me? 200,000 searches globally.
200,000! And Jake, I think your "oh honey no" reaction is exactly what we need to unpack here, because this isn't necessarily about them being clueless, right? Like, there's actual data behind why this question is so prevalent.
You're absolutely right. So according to the Singles in America 2025 study, 69% of Gen Z say they're not ready for relationships. 69%. And then you have Tinder's 2024 study showing that 91% of Gen Z finds dating harder than previous generations. So when you combine those two things,
it makes total sense that they're Googling this. Like, if you're not ready for relationships but you still have feelings and attractions, and if dating feels impossibly hard, then of course you're going to be second-guessing every single interaction. Plus, and this is key, they're the first generation to grow up entirely with social media. So they're reading signs through likes and DMs and response times instead of like body language and eye contact.
Exactly. They're trying to decode digital cues, which is, it's like reading tea leaves, right? Did they like my Instagram story within 5 minutes? Does that mean something? That they use 2 exclamation points instead of 1? What does the timing of their text response indicate about their feelings? It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is exhausting, and I think, okay, this might be controversial, but I think this is where the whole coddle generation thing actually comes into play. But not in the way people usually mean it. Like, it's not that they're weak or whatever, it's that they've been protected from the messiness of figuring out attraction through trial and error.
Ooh, that's interesting. You mean like previous generations just fumbled through it and learned from getting rejected or getting mixed signals, but Gen Z wants to optimize the process before they even try.
Yes, exactly. They want to Google how to know if someone likes me before they risk the emotional vulnerability of putting themselves out there, which honestly, I get it. Rejection hurts at any age, but when your entire social life is documented online and can be screenshotted and shared,
the stakes feel higher, yeah. All right, let's move to question number 2, which is very much in the same vein. What are the best dating apps for Gen Z? 180,000 searches. And this one kills me because it's like asking, what's the best way to feel terrible about myself?
Oh my God, Jake. But also, you're not wrong. So here's what's wild about this question. 50% of Tinder users are Gen Z. They are the primary demographic. But at the same time, according to a Forbes study from this year, 78% of them report app burnout. 78%.
So they're simultaneously the biggest users and the most burnt out users. That's peak Gen Z right there. Like, I hate this thing, but I'm gonna optimize my experience with it anyway.
Right, and what's happening as a result is actually really interesting. There's this shift back to meeting people in person. Like Time magazine reported that Gen Z is increasingly favoring real-world connections over digital ones, but they still want to research which apps are best for their demographic because I guess they want to hedge their bets.
It's like they want to be strategic about which form of dating misery they're going to subject themselves to. Which sounds harsh, but I don't mean it to be. I think it shows they're actually really thoughtful about their mental health and their time, which is admirable.
Totally admirable. And it makes sense that this question gets so many searches because the dating app landscape changes constantly. Like what was cool for Gen Z in 2023 might be totally dead by 2025. They're trying to stay current with platforms that actually have people their age who aren't just looking for hookups.
Which brings us to question number 3, and this one made me genuinely sad when I saw it. How do I ask someone out? 150,000 searches. And the reason this made me sad is because of the context behind it.
Oh, I know what stat you're about to reference, and it's going to make everyone listening feel feelings. Go ahead, break our hearts.
According to the Survey Center on American Life from 2024, 44% of Gen Z men never dated anyone as teenagers. 44%! And then the Singles in America study found that 63% of Gen Z reports that romantic dynamics are ambiguous in their social circles.
So you have this huge chunk of people who literally have no experience with asking someone out because they never did it as teenagers, combined with a culture where nobody knows if hanging out is a date or just hanging out. No wonder they're Googling this.
And here's where I do think the coddled thing becomes relevant, but again, not in a mean way. Like previous generations learned this stuff through awkward middle school dances and passing notes that said, "Do you like me? Check yes or no." Gen Z missed that entire phase of social development.
Exactly. They went straight from elementary school friendships to being expected to navigate adult relationships through dating apps. There was no training wheels period. So of course they're Googling, how do I ask someone out? Because they genuinely don't know the mechanics of it.
And the thing is, the mechanics have changed. Like when we were teenagers, you asked someone to hang out, and it was pretty clear if it was a date or not, based on context. But now, everything is let's hang out. Everything is ambiguous. Everything could be interpreted multiple ways.
Which leads us perfectly into question number 4. Is online dating safe for Gen Z? 120,000 searches. And this one is fascinating because it reveals this interesting contradiction in their behavior.
Oh yeah, the contradiction being that they're digital natives who should theoretically be more comfortable with online dating, but actually they're more suspicious of it than any previous generation?
Wait. Back up. 40% think AI companions are cheating? That's actually kind of sweet. Like, they're taking emotional connections seriously, regardless of whether the other person is human or not. It is sweet, but it also shows how complicated their relationship with digital connection has become. They grew up online, so they understand that online relationships can be real and meaningful. But they also understand that online spaces can be manipulated and fake in ways that older generations didn't have to worry about. So they're asking, is online dating safe? Because they've seen catfishing, they've seen deepfakes, they've seen all the ways digital connection can go wrong, but they also know that's increasingly the primary way people meet. It's like they want to participate, but they want to be smart about it. Which brings us to our final question, and this one is so perfectly Gen Z that I almost laughed when I first saw it. How long should I wait to text after a date? 100,000 searches. And the fact that this is a top search tells you everything about how they approach dating. Everything, because it's so rules-based, right? Like, they want a formula. They want to know, if I wait X amount of time, I will achieve Y result, which is very much a generation that grew up with algorithms and optimization and life hacks. Yes, and according to Hinge data from 2023, 50% of Gen Z delays messaging after dates because they're trying to seem not too eager. But then they're also the generation that values authenticity and intentional dating. Time magazine reported that they prefer meaningful connections over casual ones. So they want to be authentic and intentional, but they also want to follow dating rules that might prevent them from being authentic and intentional. It's like they're trying to hack a system that can't actually be hacked because it's based on human emotions and compatibility. Exactly. And I think this gets to the psychology behind all of these questions. Like, what do these search patterns tell us about Gen Z's relationship with love and dating and vulnerability? I think it tells us that they're simultaneously more thoughtful and more anxious than previous generations. More thoughtful because they're actually researching and trying to understand dating instead of just winging it. More anxious because they're researching and trying to understand something that's inherently mysterious and unpredictable. Right, and I think there's something really poignant about the fact that their top questions are all about uncertainty. How do I know if someone likes me? How do I ask someone out? How long should I wait to text? These aren't questions about what they want. They seem to know what they want. These are questions about how to navigate getting what they want without getting hurt. And that makes sense for a generation that's seen their parents' relationships, that's witnessed divorce rates, that's grown up with social media showing them all the ways relationships can be messy and public and painful. They want love, but they want to be strategic about getting it, which is actually really smart. Like, yes, there's something to be said for diving in headfirst and learning through experience, but there's also something to be said for trying to avoid unnecessary heartbreak by being informed and intentional.
Totally. And I think maybe the lesson here isn't that Gen Z is doing dating wrong, but that they're doing dating differently. And maybe some of their approaches, the thoughtfulness, the emphasis on safety, the desire for intentional connection, maybe those are actually improvements.
I think so too. Like, yes, maybe they're missing out on some of the spontaneous magic of not knowing what you're doing, but they're also avoiding some of the unnecessary pain that comes from, not knowing what you're doing.
Exactly. And honestly, if I were navigating dating in 2025 with all the apps and the digital complexity and the ambiguous social norms, I'd probably be Googling these same questions. The landscape has changed so much that previous generations' advice doesn't always apply.
So true. All right, so that's our deep dive into what Gen Z is actually asking about dating based on 2025 search data. 200,000 people wanting to know how to tell if someone likes them, 180,000 researching the best apps, and hundreds of thousands more asking for guidance on everything from asking someone out to texting etiquette.
What we found is that these questions reveal a generation that's thoughtful, strategic, maybe a little anxious, but ultimately just trying to find love and connection in a world that's made both of those things simultaneously easier and harder than ever before. They deserve our understanding, not our judgment.
So that's our extended deep dive into what Gen Z is actually asking about dating based on 2025 search data. 10 questions representing nearly 1 million searches, from wanting to know how to tell if someone likes them to asking why dating feels so exhausting.
And if you're Gen Z and you found yourself nodding along to any of these questions, you're not alone. Hundreds of thousands of people are right there with you, trying to figure it out. We'll see you next time.
Actually, wait, before we sign off, we should probably mention that we found 5 more questions that were almost as popular. Like, we're talking about another 500,000 searches here that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh, right. You know what? Let's keep going. Our listeners came here for the full data deep dive, and honestly, these next questions are just as revealing, maybe even more so.
Okay, question number 6. What does situationship mean? 90,000 searches. And Jake, this one made me realize how much dating vocabulary has evolved in just the past few years.
90,000 people Googling what situationship means tells you everything about how normalized this concept has become for Gen Z. Like, it's not that they don't know what it feels like. They're living it. They just want the official definition so they can talk about it.
Exactly. And here's what's wild. According to Psychology Today, 60% of college-age people report being in at least one situationship in the past year. 60%. So this isn't some fringe dating trend. This is literally how the majority of Gen Z is experiencing romantic connection.
Which connects back to what we talked about earlier, that 63% of Gen Z says romantic dynamics in their social circles are ambiguous. Like, situationships aren't a bug in how they date, they're a feature. They've created a whole category for relationships that exist in the gray area.
Question number 7 gets even more specific. How to end a situationship. 85,000 searches. So they've figured out what situationships are, they're in them, and now they want to know how to get out of them.
That's actually heartbreaking. Like, 85,000 people are stuck in these undefined relationships and Googling how to escape. It shows that situationships might feel safer initially, but they can become just as emotionally complicated as traditional relationships, maybe more so, because there's no clear framework for ending them.
Right, because how do you break up with someone you were never officially dating? There's no relationship status to change, no announcement to make, no clear social script to follow. You're just fading away from something that was never clearly defined in the first place.
Question number 8 is fascinating. What is love bombing? 75,000 searches. And this one shows me that Gen Z is actually really aware of manipulation tactics in dating in ways that previous generations weren't.
Yes, this is where their internet native upbringing actually serves them really well. They've seen articles about toxic relationships. They've seen TikToks about red flags. They understand psychological manipulation in a way that's honestly kind of sophisticated. But they still need Google to help them figure out how to identify it correctly.
And according to research from the National Domestic Violence Hotline, younger people are more likely to recognize emotional manipulation when it's labeled for them. So these searches represent Gen Z actively trying to protect themselves by learning the vocabulary of unhealthy relationship pattern.
Question 9, how to have the "what are we" conversation. 70,000 searches. And this might be my favorite because it shows they do want clarity in their relationships. They're just terrified of initiating the conversation that leads to it.
This ties directly back to their comfort with ambiguity that we talked about earlier. Like, they can exist in undefined relationships for months, but when they finally decide they want clarity, they need Google to help them figure out how to ask for it without seeming needy or scaring the other person away.
And the fact that 70,000 people need guidance on this conversation tells you how high stakes it feels for them. Like, this isn't just, hey, what's up with us? This is potentially relationship-defining territory, and they don't want to mess it up.
And our final question, question number 10, why is dating so exhausting? 65,000 searches, which is both funny and deeply sad because it shows that exhaustion with dating has become so common that people are literally Googling why they feel this way.
65,000 people asking, why is dating so exhausting, is basically Gen Z collectively raising their hand and saying, this system is broken, and we need someone to validate that it's not just us. And honestly, the data supports them. Between app fatigue, decision paralysis, and the emotional labor of constantly managing digital personas, modern dating is exhausting.
And this connects to a broader pattern we're seeing in Gen Z mental health data. According to the American Psychological Association's 2025 report, Gen Z reports higher levels of dating-related anxiety than any previous generation. So when they're Googling, why is dating so exhausting? They're not just being dramatic, they're experiencing genuine psychological fatigue from the process.
Okay, so we've covered 10 questions representing nearly 1 million searches, and the picture that emerges is of a generation that wants love and connection, but is overwhelmed by the complexity of finding it. They're strategic, anxious, informed, and exhausted. So what do we do with this information?
I think the first thing is recognition that these aren't personal failures. They're systematic challenges. When hundreds of thousands of people are Googling the same dating questions, that suggests the current dating landscape itself needs some adjustment, not the people trying to navigate it.
Exactly. And I think there's some practical takeaways here. If you're Gen Z and you found yourself Googling any of these questions, first, you're not alone. Second, maybe consider that your instincts toward intention and safety in dating are actually strengths, not weaknesses.
And maybe consider that some of these questions don't actually need to be Googled. They need to be asked directly to the person you're interested in. Do you like me? What are we? How are you feeling about this? These conversations are scary, but they're also the only real way to get the clarity you're seeking.
And for everyone else listening, parents, older millennials, Gen X, maybe these search patterns can help us understand that Gen Z isn't being overly complicated or dramatic about dating. They're responding rationally to a dating environment that is more complex and potentially harmful than what previous generations experienced.
The fact that nearly 1 million people are searching for guidance on basic dating questions tells us that we need better education, better social frameworks, and maybe just more patience with a generation that's trying to figure out love in the age of algorithms.
Before we wrap up for real this time, I want to circle back to something that really struck me about all of these questions. Every single one is about reducing uncertainty. Gen Z isn't asking, how do I fall in love? Or how do I find my soulmate? They're asking practical, tactical questions about navigating specific moments and interactions.
That's such a good point. They're not Googling how to find love. They're Googling how to know if this specific person likes me back. They're not asking how to have a relationship. They're asking how to have this one difficult conversation. It's incredibly specific, practical problem solving, which honestly shows a level of emotional intelligence that I think we should give them credit for.
Absolutely. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Gen Z is approaching dating like they approach everything else, thoughtfully, strategically, with research and intention. And while that might rob some of the spontaneous magic from romance, it might also prevent a lot of unnecessary heartbreak. There are worse ways to approach love than with careful consideration.
So that's a wrap on today's deep dive. I feel like we could honestly keep talking about this data for another hour, but I think we've given everyone plenty to think about. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more of our takes on modern dating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us out. Also, definitely turn on notifications so you don't miss the next Dating Decoded episode. We've got some really fascinating data coming up in the next one that I think is going to surprise people.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Until next time, remember, whether you're Gen Z, millennial, or somewhere in between, we're all just trying to figure out this whole love thing together. Take care.